Hey everybody, Jake here with the Brave and the Boys, and with it being December and all, I wanted to make a video that I was super excited to make. That is going to be my top 10 DC books of the year. So most of these are going to be books that did come out this year. Some of them are going to be ones I was maybe a little late to the party on, but these were all books that I read and just made me fall in love with DC all over again, so I'm so excited to share them with you. I want to say if you're new to the channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button, ring that bell for notifications. All of you smash that like button on the video. That really helps out with the algorithm. And you know, we just love to keep making videos like this. And speaking of that, if you want to support the channel, we have our sponsor, Organic Price Books. There, if you're buying 1 to 3 books, you can use the code Braveboys to save $2. Or if you want to buy 4 or more books, you can use the code Braveboyssit to save 5%. Let's dive into number 10.
Deep within a bleak and dismal swamp, hidden beneath its murky waters, lies the headquarters of the most sinister villains of all time. The Legion of Doom.
Coming in at number 10 is the book I've read most recently, which was Nice House on the Lake, the deluxe edition, which contained issues 1 through 12, written by James Tynion, however you pronounce it, with art by Alvaro Martinez Bueno. And let me tell you, this book made me feel some things. So I'm going to be really big on this list and not give you guys spoilers, but I am going to set up the central theme of this story. Several people, some of them friends, some of them strangers, all share a mysterious friend named Walter. And it comes as a surprise to some of them that Walter invites all of them to go to a lake house together. And when they arrive, it's the most gorgeous lake house they've ever seen. It has a movie theater. It has it's almost like this place was built specifically for each one of them. So at the end of this first day, they finally get cell service again and they realize something horrifying. And that is the world is on fire. The world is ending. And one of their friends has a realization of what's happening. And that is the huge central theme of the book, is that the world is over and these 11 friends and strangers have to live together in this lake house, and it is crazy. It's a slow burn psychological horror, but the main thing about this book is it's almost like James Tynion worked through his COVID issues, because we were kind of all trapped inside indoors and we all had different defense mechanisms. And I was reading it, and at different points in my life of the COVID journey, I was each of these people. And I mean, that's just the way to set it up. The discoveries and mysteries along the way and the slow creeping psychological horror are what make the book fantastic. So for all those reasons and more, Nice House on the Lake was number 10, and I think you should all check it out. Coming in at number 9 is Batman by Chip Zdarsky, an amazing artist, Jorge Jimenez, and this book is action-packed and incredible. So what I like about this book is if you don't have a lot of Batman knowledge, you can read it and have a good time. There's amazing moments like Batman's fall from outer space and him fighting a superpowered robot and all these crazy things. But there is also a lot of moments that I think are better if you've read Grant Morrison's Batman or if you've read Tom King's Batman, and I think it's just a really great point to jump on. It's also a great next evolution of the character. So this storyline has to do with a failsafe that Batman has created. As all you guys know, Batman has contingency plans for his contingency plans for his contingency plans. And this contingency plan was if Batman ever kills, a superpowered robot that he couldn't defeat will be activated to take him out. And I love this. It's almost like a modern day Tower of Babel type situation where he fights failsafe, and it's incredible. It leads into a second storyline, the Batman of Gotham, which I also loved, but this one I think is a little bit better and I really loved it. So for all of those reasons, this is one of the best Batman stories I read this year, and it's fantastic. I think you should all check it out, whether you're a new Batman fan or an old Batman fan. You're gonna read it, you're gonna love it, and I think it is a great spot at number 9 on my list. Now let's look at number 8. Coming in at number 8, we have a Superman story that I just fell in love with. It was incredible, it was amazing, and it was done by the powerhouse team of Mark Russell, who I haven't read before, but now I want to tackle every Mark Russell comic ever, and Michael Allred, who I fell in love with on Silver Surfer, which you may see on a Marvel version of this list. So the central storyline reminded me of a conversation I had with a friend who didn't read comics, and that friend kind of posed the philosophical question, the trolley problem. what would Superman do if he had to choose between saving one person or 5 people? And I told him, I was like, you don't understand. The whole point of Superman as a character of fiction is that through his goodness and his humanity, he will find a way to save the one person, save the 5 people, and save the people on the trolley, no matter what it costs him personally. And I think that's a perfect way to encapsulate this book. It's going to be an alternative history of America, sort of like New Frontier a little bit, where you get to see the different eras of America and you get to see different historical moments in America happen in this DC universe. It combines all these different continuities, and I think it's just a fantastic story. It's the essence of what makes Superman fantastic, and I loved it. The ending is shocking and I think poetically beautiful. I think the characters are really true to themselves, and I think they crammed so much story into such a small book that you have to read it. I think it's an incredible storyline, and as Superman being one of my favorite characters in fiction, I think this story did him justice, and I think it's a great way to read about the DC universe in a continuity-free storyline where you don't need to know anything going in. So you could read this story and just know that it's an amazing Superman story of his humanity, his goodness, his sacrifice, and I think you're gonna love it. Let's move on to number 7. Now's when the list is getting super hard for me to decide what's next. This is World's Finest by Mark Waid and Dan Mora. Dan Mora is quickly becoming one of my favorite current DC artists, and Mark Waid is becoming one of my current favorite DC writers. I mean, everybody knows Mark Waid's an incredible writer, but what he does in this imprint is phenomenal. It's like everything I loved about DC in one book, and it's fresh but classic, and it's just incredible. So the story starts with Superman fighting Metallo, and he gets infected with kryptonite poison. So you get these incredible moments where like Superman has to go to the Doom Patrol and he teams up with Batman, and it's just like, if you want to see Batman and Superman finally be friends, this is the storyline for that. There's incredible moments with Robin and Supergirl, and they have an incredible new villain, and I just think it's an incredible story. Going on from this one, you could read Batman versus Robin, and you could do volume 2 of World's Finest. I haven't read those yet, but they're like, just because there's so much to read, I want to read those next. But Mark Waid's World's Finest imprint is fantastic. I'm like, honestly, give him the reins of DC. I'm loving everything that both of them are doing. This had one of my favorite arts of any book I've read this year, and it was one of my favorite stories I read this year. It also helped get me out of a slump. I had kind of hit a reading slump, and reading this just revitalized everything I loved about DC. It was like a perfect encapsulation of my favorite superhero comics all in one, and I think it's a perfect spot. I almost feel like it should be higher, but I just read so many amazing storylines this year that it's shocking to me that one of my favorite things I ever read is number 7. So hopefully I don't regret this. Maybe I'll chop it up in the editing and make it higher, but for now I feel good about it being number 7 just because all the other books I read this year were so fantastic. Let's move on to number 6. Coming in hot at number 6 is written by my favorite DC writer, and that is Tom King's Gotham City Year 1. Now, this was a book I was really excited to read. With Tom King, I tried to wait until they're collected, you know, it's because I don't really read single issues, but then when the deluxe comes out, I'm going to buy that. When the absolute comes out, I'm going to buy that. And the reason I had to buy this book is he won a lot of awards for it, and he said this was his favorite series that nobody read. And that made me so sad. I want to get more people to read this book. So what is it? It's an origin story for Gotham City. So it's not Batman Year 1, it's Gotham City Year 1. And Gotham was not always this crime-ridden cesspool that we know today. It was like, it had less crime than Metropolis. I think there was like 3 murders in its history, so the streets were clean, and it was like the police force were like enforcers. They were like a syndicate of themselves. And it tells the story of Slam Bradley, a private detective who gets entangled in the missing disappearance of the Wayne heir. So this has to do with like Batman's grandma and grandpa, and it's just an incredible story. So what I love about it is you'll see similar reoccurring motifs such as owls, cat burglars, and strong protagonists with a knack for solving crimes and detectives. And you just basically get a Batman Catwoman story, which we know Tom King loves to write, without Batman and Catwoman. You get to see awesome little Easter eggs to origins for things I never asked about, and you get to see how Gotham City became a city in need of a vigilante. And I think it's an incredible storyline. It had so many shocking twists and turns. We all know that Tom King loves a good private eye detective story, and this time he got to play in that field in the city of Gotham, and I think more people need to read it. So go check this story out. It's fantastic. I love it. It makes me sad it didn't do very well, because I don't know if we'll ever get a deluxe edition or if we'll get a volume 2, but I would read more volumes with Slam Bradley, and I would read more volumes of Tom King writing origins of, DC cities. Like, give me a Metropolis year 1, give me a Themyscira year 1, So I love this storyline. I love Tom King, and this book is one you should all check out. Coming in at number 5 is a book that might look familiar if you've watched some of our recent videos, such as the top 10 Batman comics of all time, which you can watch here if you want to get another top 10 list if you can't get enough of these lists. Or basically watch Mojo for comics at this point. But this is going to be the Batman Adventures Omnibus. So this is for all of those who loved Batman the Animated Series, which I was obsessed with. Because up until I watched Batman the Animated Series, I was watching the Super Friends, which was hokey, and the art of Super Friends was cool and classic and timeless, but Batman the Animated Series changed everything. So this was written by Kelly Puckett with influences by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, and the art style matches the animated series, and this is like they ripped episodes of the animated series that were lost, and you get to see some awesome stories. So when I read this, I read it in Mark Hamill as the Joker, I read it as Kevin Conroy as Batman, but little secret, I read all Joker and Batman in those voices, but I love it. So if you love the animated series, if you're sad it's not on currently and you want more of it, you got to read this book. It's fantastic. It was refreshing. I loved it. And to me, it's just everything that was nostalgic about Batman for me encapsulated in one book. So I'm very happy that this book finally got delivered to me. There's a lot of craziness about this book getting stolen from me and then someone finding it outside and returning it to me in the box. So that was like a mystery into itself. But yeah, crazy. Love this book. Favorite Batman Omni I've read this year, and you all need to check it out. Coming in at number 4 is the incredible Justice League World's Greatest Superheroes, done by Paul Dini, one of my favorite DC writers, and Alex Ross, one of the best, most incredible comic book artists of all time. So what I will say is I bought this book on accident. For those of you who are friends of the channel, you may remember the stories of me trying and failing on numerous occasions to get absolute justice, and one of the times I bought this book by accident, but what a happy accident. So what I love about this is not only is it large like an absolute, it's even larger. So it's the original magazine size that it was originally printed in, and it's like one-off stories of Superman, Batman, the Atom, Shazam, and every story is just so profound. These are the heroes in their greatest moments, such as Superman going to fight against world hunger, or Batman breaking the cycle of violence, protecting a young boy who also lost his parents. There's some little short Justice League stories, and there's the Atom, there's Green Lantern. So if you want to get a story that showcases the range of the DC heroes, what makes each of them great in these amazing hand-painted moments, this book is incredible. You have to read it. I actually wound up liking this more than Justice, so this was definitely a happy accident, and it definitely needs to be on your list to pick up next year. Now we're in the top 3, and this list is getting hard, so I feel like you could almost swap out any of these next 3 stories in any order, but I did my best to give you guys a top 10 list. So for number 3, we have the incredible, insane Preacher. Preacher was done by Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon, and I always wanted to own these absolutes, but they were always, 1 or 2 of them would be out of print at a certain time, so I finally bought both Omnis. And then a friend of the channel, New Spooey, hit me up and was like, hey, I'm at Ollie's, there's a great killer deal on one of the Preachers, it's only like 30 bucks. And I said, you know what, I was gonna be happy with the Omnis, but no, you guys know me, I had to get the absolutes. So over the course of this year, I got them in the weirdest order. I think I went like 3, 2, 1 or 3, 1, 2, so I got them in a weird order, but I finally got to own Absolute Preacher and all its blasphemous glory, and it was incredible. So my only experience with Preacher before this was the TV show, which I actually really liked. I thought it was incredible what they got away with, and oh my god, they go even further in the comic. So for those of you that don't want a blasphemous story, let's skip ahead to the next one. But for those of you that are okay with a story that's controversial, you're gonna get the story of a preacher who gets infused with the spawn of an angel and a demon known as Genesis, or the Word of God, that gives him the ability to command any being to do anything. So there's amazing moments in the storyline, incredible bombastic moments, but what I love most are the characters. Cassidy is amazing in every scene that he's in. Tulip is amazing in every scene that she's in, and Jesse is just so awesome. So I loved it, fantastic. I haven't read volumes 2 and 3 yet, but I'm excited to dive into those, and Preacher was just one of the best stories I've ever read. Coming in at number 2, and I might already be regretting that this isn't my number 1, is the awe-inspiring, life-changing read that is Absolute Day Tripper by Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba. This book was awesome. I never even heard of this book until Omar's recent top absolute book video, and the way he explained it, I just had to own it. And luckily, Cheap Graphic Novels did a restock, and I was able to pick it up without paying horrible whale prices, and I'm super happy to own it. If you want to see that and some other awesome whales I picked up this year, you can watch I Caught All My Absolute Whales, which is one of the funnest videos that I got to make this year. But let's dive into Day Tripper and what makes it so good. So Day Tripper is the story of a obituary writer, and you get to see little moments of his life. Sometimes it's his childhood, other times he's an old man, and the huge twist is at the end of every issue, he dies. And over the course of the book, you get to see the encapsulation of one person's life, the impact he's had, the loves he's gained and lost, the friendships he's gained and lost, the relationship with his father, another prominent writer, and it is just an awesome story. In the words of Chris Balga, you're going to feel like a better person after you're done reading it, and you have to check this out. It's okay if you can't get the Absolute edition, even though the art warrants it, even though it's not an action-heavy book. This is one of my favorite Absolutes, and it is one of my favorite stories I read this year. You gotta read it. And this brings us to my favorite DC read of the year, and that has to be Superman for All Seasons by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. So for those of you that know, you know that my favorite Batman stories are done by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, and I can't believe they also did my favorite Superman story of the year. So this is going to tell the story of Superman's origin from soup to nuts, told through different seasons of his life, such as winter, spring. You'll get different characters narrating different portions, but it shows how Clark goes from a small boy on a farm to the Superman that we know and love. He's going to battle Lex Luthor. He's going to become the hero that we ultimately know and love to this day. And the way Tim Sale draws Superman as so large, but also so gentle and so light, is just incredible. One of my favorite artists I've ever seen draw Superman. And this collection, the Absolute Edition, done with the canvas, with the beautiful slipcase, is just perfect. If you want to see an overview of this book, we did it for Organic Price Books channel, which you can watch here. And this just was like everything I loved about my favorite character, and I can't believe I hadn't read it before. So getting to read this for the first time in the Absolute Edition was such a treat, and it was just everything I loved about Superman, everything I loved about comics, and it was just such a beautiful storyline. One of my favorite moments is little quieter, smaller moments, such as when Ma and Pa Kent are talking about what's going on with their son, and they say, well, don't worry, he could never hear us, and Clark is upstairs in his bedroom. But everything, like every town in Smallville, every part of Smallville, Clark's room, everything's just drawn with so much life and so much. I mean, the art of this book is just incredible. You got to get in the oversized format, and that's why, as hard as this list was to make, this was my favorite DC story of the year. Now let's jump into my final thoughts. And that's going to bring this video to a close. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing my list of the top 10 DC stories I read this year. If you have a story that wasn't in here, I'm sorry, I don't have time to read everything. I read as much as I could. If you agreed with any of these, let me know down in the comments below. Tell me what your top book of DC was this year. And if you want to support us, you can like, comment, and subscribe. Ring that bell for notifications. We have a Discord. We have merch. I'm not wearing any merch. I'm wearing a Santa Claus t-shirt because it's December and it's got Batman and Santa on it. And if you want to support the channel, a great way to do that is to purchase any of these books from our sponsor, Organic Price Books. There, if you're buying 1 to 3 books, you can save $2 with the code Braveboys. Or if you want to buy 4 or more, if you're going crazy for Christmas, you can use the code Braveboyssit to save 5%. And for all of you, I want to say thank you so much for supporting our channel this year. We have some very special big announcements coming for next year. I hope you all have a Merry Christmas or a Happy Holidays, whichever holiday you guys do celebrate, and keep reading and stay brave.